Living like I had no money actually made me feel worse than broke.
I just got paid, so where the hell did all my money go?
Why is it that millennials are the poorest generation?
With the cost of living has increased so much that they have 86% less purchasing power than the baby boomers did when they were in their 20s.
It's actually widely believed that millennials are the most financially screwed generation in history. So where does that leave you? Well, if you're a Gen Z, here's some stats that might scare you. According to a survey done by Business Insider, the cost of living has become so high that 46% of Gen Zs have been forced to find a second job. And if that wasn't bad enough, 38% of employers say they'd avoid hiring recent Gen Z grads because they prefer older workers. They even cement that decision by offering older workers better pay and benefits. Many young adults are expressing their struggles as a result of the world that's been left for them. For example, in a recent viral TikTok, this young man states that he can't afford to live even while making 3 times minimum wage.
Can somebody explain to me in crayon eating terms why I make over 3 times the federal minimum wage and I cannot afford to live?
So is the dream of living financially free officially dead? Before we get to that, let me introduce myself. My name's Selena Kulkarni, and for over 25 years, I've been in the trenches building my own wealth and mentoring hundreds of others. And I do all of this because I want to help bridge the wealth gap through real life education, not theory. In this video, I'm going to share with you a bit of my story and some of the lessons I was able to take from some of the wealthiest people I know. Because if you want to stand any chance at financial freedom as a Gen Z or young millennial in this economy, it's essential that you make these shifts in the way you think of money. Later on in the video, I'll also share with you an exercise you can do immediately that's had a massive impact on my wealth. So stay along for that. When I moved out of home and started my first full-time job, it was like having someone pour cold water over my head. First was the painful realization that when you only get paid monthly, you got to make it last. And often I didn't. Maybe you can relate. I thought the only way to break the cycle of living from hand to mouth was actually to practice extreme frugality. And I told myself, hey, I'm an accountant, I can do this. And I created the most beautiful spreadsheets. I told myself precisely how many dollars I could spend on food and rent and fun. And the plan was simple. Live on fumes, spend as little as possible. Basically live like a student, even though I had a wage. So the tedious need for attention to detail when budgeting nearly killed me. I collected all my receipts, I entered them into my spreadsheets, and then I scolded myself if I accidentally blew out on any expenses. And after months of doing this, I actually realized 2 things. Number 1, the idea of extreme budgeting was painful to stick to. And number 2, yes, I was saving a bit more, but frankly, my life was miserable. Living like I had no money actually made me feel worse than broke. So I scrapped the spreadsheets and I decided to change my spending diet. I began consuming dozens of books and learning about money management and investing. The other thing I started to do was tune into the results of other people around me. I'd ask them questions about their life choices. What did money mean to them and how they felt about their financial situation? And those learnings were life-changing. From those experiences, I learned 3 crucial lessons that I'd like to share with you. So the first thing that became clear to me was that you need to be able to identify a scarcity mindset. So scarcity isn't about having limited resources, it's about having the mindset of never having enough. As an accountant, I was actually given the opportunity to work alongside some very wealthy people. And let me tell you, the number of people who seemed to have it all, but talked like they didn't have enough was mind-boggling. These people had a "it's not enough" mentality and stopped themselves from ever feeling fulfilled. So they had extreme levels of anxiety, stress, and unhappiness. One of the most amazing studies on this was conducted by a couple of guys that discovered that a scarcity mindset leads to a tunneling effect that causes them to neglect other, perhaps more important aspects of their life. For example, their family and friends. A great example of this was Howard Hughes, once one of the richest men in the world, and he's a great example of a scarcity mindset. So this guy was a notorious billionaire who is not remembered for his smarts, but more for having had this severely obsessive habit and vindictive streak. He became a super rich hermit, but apparently never trimmed his nails and kept his urine in jars. Weird, right? Look, I've learned that having a good relationship with money is essential no matter how high your income is. And lucky for me, for a young age, I learnt to catch myself every time I found myself thinking from a place of scarcity. Look, I know firsthand that, scarcity robs you of feeling good and can be toxic. So I'm not saying shifting my perspective was easy, but spending time with people who have an abundance mindset, who have healthy relationships with money, or who had the results I want, changed everything for me. So the second big lesson was that frugality trumps starvation. Now I'm going to tell you a quick story that changed my life, so stick with me. Picture this. I was a 23-year-old working my ass off, just getting by, living on scraps. And around this time, I started working for a guy that was a couple of years older than me. Now, he seemed to have this really weird relationship with money. He was a guy that had holes in his socks. He would eat the most basic of lunches and spent very little on anything he thought was wasteful. But then he would drop $1,000 on a meal out, which was a huge amount of money. I just assumed he was reckless. But then as I got to know him, I was really surprised to find out that he was actually quite wealthy, like stupidly wealthy. I actually found out he was heir to a massive multinational company. He was the future CEO of a company or a group of companies worth millions of dollars, like hundreds of millions, that spanned many countries. So I started to study him. I wanted to know the reason behind his spending patterns. And one day I was able to catch him having an affordable lunch. So I sat with him and we started talking. And of course I asked him the big question: why did he spend so little in some aspects and then drop a bomb on one dinner? And this is what he told me. He said, being careful with your money is different to living from a place of scarcity. I'm careful on what I spend my money on. I don't really care about the difference in quality of things I wear, but I want to have top quality experiences because that's what I care about. Now, not many of us are going to inherit an empire, but I would still be starving myself regardless of the wealth I'd achieved if I hadn't had that conversation. And to this day, we've stayed great friends, and he's had a huge influence on my relationship with money. The meaning of frugality tends to get a bad rap, but in my mind, it just means to be mindful of your resources. Frugality is different to being stingy with your money. Scarcity comes from a place of not having enough, but the big problem is that if you think you will never have enough, you won't. One of the most powerful exercises that reshaped my relationship to money was to take 12 months of bank statements and divide everything into 2 buckets, essential and non-essential. Now, of course, this might seem arbitrary, but you'll be amazed at how hard this exercise is. When I was thinking about how I spend my money, it wasn't an exercise in right or wrong or good or bad. It was an exercise in personal accountability, because money habits are crucial. Now, once I could see where my money had been going, I couldn't unsee it. And this then became the starting point for making better decisions. And in case that you don't think you need this, as someone who's coached hundreds of people, this tool has helped almost everyone realize where their money's leaking. I guarantee you'll find this tool useful, and it's 100% free. The link is in the description below. If you found this video valuable so far and you want more content like this, please consider subscribing and liking. Now on to the final lesson I've learned. You're almost there. You can be rich without being wealthy. Now, I used to confuse these things all the time. When I started full-time work on an absolutely measly salary, I thought the cure-all antidote was make more money. Years into my career as an accountant, I noticed that even though my income had increased, I actually wasn't any better off. Lifestyle creep, meaning I just spent more, soaked up all my higher income before I had a chance to do anything with it. And I see this all the time with clients I coach. A lot of them aren't wealthy, even when they've had high incomes for decades. Being rich actually just means you have a lot of disposable income to spend. So think rich doctor earning $1 million and spending the lot. Being wealthy is different. It's about having the financial freedom to choose how you spend your time and resources. For example, think of someone earning $100,000 that has $5 million in assets. A pivotal book for me was The Millionaire Next Door. They did a bunch of surveys and showed that meaningful wealth can be achieved at any income level, provided you live below your means. It showed that lower income earners could actually create more wealth proportionally because they often spent less. Now, I recognized a long time ago that more income is great, but it can mislead people and end up creating a situation where they are trapped by lifestyle creep. So guys, if you are serious about building wealth, check out this video I put together after 50 hours of research on whether buying a home in 2024 still makes sense. Now, I hope this video has given you something to think about. And remember, the money audit guide is waiting for you in the description. It's 100% free. See you in the next video.